It's two stones, two diamond stones that must be.
He knows. Not all of it. Not at the end. The fact that he would say who the sheriff was, I didn't say everyone. Anything. If you're going to say anything, say that they got a banquet. Yeah.
Someone else said they lost it now.
Into the program.
It's a little loud.
What?
Loud.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to begin by telling you what the program will be tonight. I will have a few opening remarks. The president of the shul, Julia Sertel, will give some greetings. We will have insights from a number of friends and relatives of the rabbi. At that point, we will say the Birkas Hamazon. Afterwards, we'll have a sight and sound show, and the rabbi will have some concluding remarks. Good evening and welcome to all who are here. Rabbi Twerski, Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbanim, friends and guests. We Jews make a fabulous, fantastic claim when we say that we received, as an entire nation, a divine revelation. As a people, as an entire nation, and not just as individuals. Yet how do we know that the written Torah which we have today is the same one which was given to our forefathers and mothers over 3,300 years ago? I want to share with you an interesting fact. The written Torah has over 300,000 letters, 80,000 words. It's been passed in handwritten form for all of these generations. By people who have been dispersed over the face of the earth. And yet, when we compare the Sifrei Torah that are in existence today, from all around the world, we find that they differ in only 9 letters. Of those 9, 8 do not change the meanings of any words. And the 9th is the letter Vav, the connective word and. And we do this despite the fact that we have no central authority which stamps its seal of approval upon each Sefer Torah as it is produced, nor do we have any other authority other than our Rabbanim in each of us as we are called to the Sefer Torah for an Aliyah to verify that there are no errors in this document. Equally remarkable is the way in which our Torah leaders today are connected to the Torah leaders, to our Torah giants of prior generations. We're here tonight to honor Rabbi Michal Twerski, a man whose life is imbued with Torah, whose life is dedicated to the growth of Torah. We'll be hearing tonight from many of his family and friends who will be giving you some of their insights into their relationship with him and his work and life. I just want to share with you that I came to Milwaukee 8 years ago because of Reb Michal with my wife and a 5-year-old son. My oldest son today views Reb Michal as his foster parent. And as for me, I look forward to the one time every year when I get to dance with Reb Michal on Simchas Torah. But Reb Michal is not like a flower, the annual flower that shoots up its sprout puts forth a flower, goes to seed, withers and dies. He's like the perennial that comes back year after year to flower for each season, for every generation. Many of you have seen the family tree in the living room of the Twerski home. That family tree shows the Twerski family going back to Rashi. From there it can be traced to King David and ultimately back to Adam. And so when we look and we see Rev Michal in his daily life, we can catch a glimpse and a glimmer of many of the Torah giants of prior generations whose lives meant so much to those around them. When we look at Rev Michal, we can see in him his grandfather on his mother's side, the Bavara Rebbe, whose practical wisdom, warmth, compassion, and great musical ability were able to attract over 900 young men to his yeshiva after World War II, at a time when the Jews were suffering badly, and was able to attract many hundreds of Talmidim who regarded him as their father. When we look at Reb Michal, we can glimpse in him his great-grandfather on his father's side, Reb Mordechai Dov, the Hornesteipel Rebbe, of whom there are many stories of his humility, learning, and wisdom. I'd like to share one of those with you tonight. Reb Muttal, as he was called, suffered from a weak heart. And once he had a case of the hiccups which would not stop, and his friends and followers were worried that if it were not stopped, he might have a heart attack. The local rabbis, the local doctors were unable to do anything, so he was taken to the nearest big city, Kiev, to see a specialist. The method of treatment at that time was to take a metal rod, to heat it, and to lay it on the back of the patient. And if it didn't cure the patient by the shock, it might kill him. Reb Muttal submitted to this treatment. The metal rod was heated and placed on his back, and he did not move. The doctor could see the red mark on his back. The welts were beginning to raise. Yet he took the rod and heated it a second time. Again applied it to Muttal's back. Again, the Rebbe did not move. At this point, the doctor picked up the rod and threw it on the ground and cried out. When I come near a Cossack with this rod, they jump out the window. The doctor's remarks were translated to the Rebbe from Russian, and he responded to his followers, "If I don't jump out the window when a Jew comes and cries and pours out his heart to me, and I cannot help him, why should I jump out the window now?" And when we look at Reb Michal, we can also catch a glimpse back to his father of blessed memory, Reb Yaakov, whom it is said that he used to stand outside the home of a sick child in the early morning hours until he could see a sign of movement inside, and he knew it was proper to come to the door and inquire how the child was doing. Each of us who have been in the hospital for happy or not so happy occasions know that we can expect to see Reb Michal at any time of the day or night, and we know the relief that his visits can bring. A man came up to Reb Michal recently in London and told him that the Steipler Rav of blessed memory, before he had died, had told him of the path of the Hornesteipel dynasty. The dynasty, he said, which had begun in Hornesteipel, moved to Antwerp, to Chicago, settled in Milwaukee, where it flourished. After Rev Yaakov, it passed to Denver. The flame of that dynasty, the Steipler had said, has now been rekindled in Milwaukee. We are honored, fortunate, and privileged to have Reb Michal as our spiritual leader and guide. And we ask the Almighty's blessing that that flame, which has been kindled here, burn brightly now, during Reb Michal's 50th year, and for many years to come. Thank you. Now it's my honor to introduce the president of our shul, Mr. Julius Ertel.
First, I want to greet our Rabbi and Leah Twerski. It's very important to have our Rebbetzin with us. She is our darling, our life. Now I'm going to introduce to you our birthday baby. This is our Rabbi. Sein Gesinnt ist stark. Bis 120 Jahre. Our Rebbetzin is our support for the Rabbi. This is his wife. Without his wife, I don't think there could be a Rabbi. We have a board of directors, a young generation, young people. Starts from 21. Hard workers, great people, Jewish people, religious people. We are treasured. This kind of people of the year. We have our vice president, the executive vice president, Mr. Hiller. He is dynamite, good worker. Honest man. Even you said lawyers are not so honest, but he's honest. He's honest, yeah. And I'm telling you the truth. It's not a lie. He is an honest kid. He has a wife. She is the executive secretary of this congregation, Lisa Hiller. She's really the dynamite. Good worker, good character, good person, a good mother, a good wife. Then I'll come to a guy which I'm going to introduce to you that you know him very well. This is Howard Karsh. Without Howard Karsh, you wouldn't have our banquet today. the truth. A guy came in here in midnight, and he started put together everything. He is really a good man for our congregation. Honest, fine young gentleman. We have a nice board of directors, hard workers. Let me explain to you who they are. We came in over here to our congregation from four corners. And this is the rabbi's job. That's what he did. The Mazangesent. He made them for Jews, for religious people. The ladies, the wives, going to mikveh, from tahara. The children, one-to-one, is religious. You come here Saturday, Shabbos, the Shep Naches, a pleasure to see them kids davening. Zo'n woman, zo'n begrijp ze mooi. Following the leader. This is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see. It costs koiches, costs lots of work. And this is done by our rabbi. He did it. He deserved 120 Euro eingesendet. Für Chia-Seiten. I could tell you lots of things. I don't want to take our time away. I am over here for many, many years. I don't remember how many years. How many years, Rabbi, I am here? 120. George is laughing. Another left. We went through a lot over here, we've gone through a lot. The rabbi built up a Talmud Torah in our congregation, in our city, that he has built up a lot of enemies. These should be ashamed. Somebody builds up a Yiddishkeit. It's bad. This is bad. Goyishkeit is good. To be a Goy is good. And to be a Jew is no good. In davening is no good. Eleni Krishma is no good. What is good? We have a call in our city. No city around here have it. We have a yeshiva. Who did it? Rabbi Michael Twerski. He doesn't have lots of help, but he does the job. Day and night. He doesn't sleep. Doesn't eat in the time. We got to treasure such a leader that we have in Milwaukee. This is 1 in a million. I went through a lot. I never spotted a guy like Rabbi Michael Twerski. He gives away his soul, his life for Jewish education, for Jewish learning. We need support from you. Without support, he cannot exist. And I know we can do it. We got to just try to do it. Don't be ashamed. Tell your wife, I need the money to give Rabbi Meir. He's doing a good job. He's learning Jewish people. He has a cheder, he has a yeshiva. That's why we got to do it. We got to promise. Is a promise? I'm not putting you to the wall. But I like to be fair. This is the way we got to do it. Then, let we not kid ourselves. We cannot let down that little guy over here. We got to support him. He's a human being. And I tell you what, he is God's child. Wir sind nicht solche. I don't want to finish up that. This is God's child. Lebt mit Gott. Rabbi Michael, where you going? I'm going to hospital. Rabbi Michael, where you going? To Denver. Where you going? I'm going to London. Where you going tonight? I'm going there. Where you going the other night? I'm going there. When you'll be home, I don't know. He does that not for himself. He does that for the community, for Yiddishkeit. We are Jewish people. We got to support that. I'm not talking to the wall. I'm talking to you. I'm ashamed to talk about that. I was raised in a Jewish family, very Jewish. I'm not so Jewish myself. Got a reason. But we got to promise to help out our Rabbi. He should take it a little easier. We need him. We need that fella. He's good with gold. He has a heart of white a mile. And he is a rabbi. He is not just a rabbi. He is a Rabbi for Rabbunis. He's not made a rabbi like other rabbis. A rabbi is a rabbi. Zog Kaddish, fine, Zog Kaddish. Zog Stage, Zog good. He is a rabbi from Deures. A Rabbi. A ongehitene Mensch. Our Rabbi goes twice in the mikveh. Other rabbis are scared to go in the mikveh. Let me finish with the mikveh. This is not a joke. A mikveh, what Rabbi built up over here by us, is one, I think in around the community or city for sure, maybe the state, build up for the ladies with the religion as for it. And he is watching that mikveh every day. He goes to check, because by law, so much water, not an inch less is no good, which I'm not a mikveh man. Anyway, so I don't know for sure what's going on, but he goes twice a day. He's watching. I'm not through. I cannot collect money tonight. I would like to collect a few dollars. A few $100,000. You have to thank Howard Cash for preparing such a beautiful meal. He worked hard. And again, I want to thank Lisa Hiller for preparing everything. Enjoy yourself and have a good night.
I'd like to introduce as our first speaker to give a few insights into the rabbi, his brother, who needs no further introduction to all of us from Milwaukee, Rabbi Twerski.
Howard handed me a note saying that he allotted me 4 minutes. I'll try and stretch it into 4 minutes. First, I want to say how glad I am to be here. I moved from Milwaukee in 1960. That's 30 years ago. And for me to be able to get together with old friends at least once a year is really a pleasure. Why I was chosen to speak, I don't know, perhaps because I'm the oldest brother, and perhaps in order to give a signal to all the other speakers to make it short. I want to tell you a story I heard last week of a fellow who was making his first trip to Israel. And he was excited. He wanted to see every second of that trip, and specifically he wanted to see Israel, the Holy Land, before they landed, as they landed. He wanted to see everything. And for weeks before, he kept on calling on the travel agent and the airlines to make sure that he had a window seat, because he wanted to see everything. He arrived in Israel, and a cousin of his was waiting for him, and he was devastated. He was absolutely beside himself. And his cousin asked him, what happened? He said, I kept on calling and I was promised a window seat. I called and called. They all promised me a window seat. And when I get on the plane, I've got an aisle seat. So the guy says, look, why didn't you tell the guy next to you exactly what the story was, how important the window seat was to you, and I'm sure he would have exchanged with you. And he said, that was my problem. There was no one sitting next to me. Is it funny? How many times in our lives have we looked back upon visions that we had, things that we wanted to do, and were stopped by phantom, non-existent people nobody sitting next to us, that didn't let us do what we wanted to do? At this occasion, in honor of my brother, I can't help remarking that not only was he never frightened and never put off by phantoms, non-existing things, from doing the things that he felt he should do, but he was never stopped by real active opposition in those things that he felt were his goals. And his chief goal was putting Milwaukee on the map as another glorious city in the history of our nation as a religious, Torah-true town. For this, he certainly deserves to be honored. And may God bless all of you for the help and you have given him and that you continue to give him. Thank you. I want to call upon Rabbi Stanley Cohen to be our next speaker.
Thank you very much. Nathaniel mentioned before that in Rabbi Michel's house there's a family tree. And I can remember when the family tree was first delivered, and I walked in there with my daughter and I showed her the tree and said, here's a family tree that takes Michel all the way back to Adam. And she said, you mean Adam was also a Twerski? It was my good fortune in 1952, upon coming to the yeshiva in Chicago, to be assigned to a room with Michel and Aaron, his brother. For all of us, it was our first time away from home, and so a special bond grew between us. The first Hanukkah came along, and being that I was all the way from Canada, and it was considered a very long distance to go home for only 1 week's vacation, the usual Twerski invitation was made that I join Michel and Aaron and come to Milwaukee for Hanukkah. They told me there was plenty of room in their house and that we would see some basketball games and we'd have a lot of fun. I accepted the invitation and then became very nervous. I was going to meet the Rabbi, and what would I say to him? Should I speak to him in English? Should I speak to him in Jewish? What should I say? How should I say it? But my nervousness was unfounded, for when I came into the house, I was treated in the inimitable Twerski manner, like one of the sons coming home from the yeshiva. The Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, he sat me down, he asked me questions about school, he asked me about learning, he asked me a few questions, he asked me about my parents, and so on and so forth. And the Rebbitzin, she kept pushing food. She kept telling me that in order to become a learned person, I needed a lot of strength, and I should keep eating. The week was wonderful and left a very indelible impression on me. About a year later, Michel and Aaron went off to Baltimore, and we kind of lost touch. 17 years later, in 1969, fate and a job brought me and my family to Milwaukee. My first Shabbos, I went to Beth Yehuda and once again met the Rebbe and Rabbi Michel, who was now an assistant to his father. And in the unusual Twerski manner, it was as if I had seen them only a few hours before, and we continued our conversation. And the bond, which began in 1952, continued to grow. We learned together, we davened together, we rejoiced together, we laughed together, and we cried together. To my friend Michel and his family, I wish many more years of health and happiness, and may we have much nachas from one another. And all the praises that can be said of Michel tonight can be summed up in just a few words. Indeed, he is his father's son.
I would like now to introduce Rabbi Shlomo Porter.
My mother is really the main reason why I'm here this Shabbos. always used to ask me, what are you doing at Reb Michel's house? Every time I went over to the house. So in addition to eating and schmoozing with Fegi and singing, I also used to learn a little bit with Reb Michel. So I always used to tell my mother, Ich lerne mit Reb Michel. I'm learning with Reb Michel. So the Mama hat gesagt, nein, Reb Michel lernt mit dir. So I said, no, Reb Michel's not learning with me, I'm learning with Reb Michel. And I always felt that whenever we learned as equals. And almost I began to feel that my name was Shlomo Porter Twerski. I was really part of the family. And wherever I'd go to New York, I'd go to Baltimore. I'm a Twerski. I'm just a Twerski without a last name. It's Twerski. I first met Reb Michel right after my bar mitzvah in Beth Yehuda. I was going to Steuben Junior High School. And Reb Michel lived on 51st near Lisbon. And I used to stop by on my way home from school. And he used to teach me reasons for different mitzvahs. And eventually, before I went to yeshiva, he taught me my first piece of Gemara. And I thought I really knew a lot until I got to yeshiva. The Rebbe, Zatzal, gave me a bracha before I got married. And I think it was really the bracha that he had in his own family. It says in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of the Fathers, Hakina v'hatayva v'hakavod motzian es ha'adam min ha'olam. Jealousy, desires, and honor-seeking take a person out of this world. So he said, everybody learns this as very negative, in a negative way, that it takes you out of this world. The truth is, it can be seen in a very positive way. You can build a home that people will be jealous of, people will be desirous of, and people will have honor-seeking to be like that home. And I think this is, when he gave me the bracha that should be my home, it was really the bracha that was his home. It was the bracha that when people saw the Twerski's home, and the door was never closed, it was always open, and you didn't knock. You didn't knock at the front door, you just walked in because the door was open. And it was something that I desired, and he was a model for me when I was growing up. But certain models, as the closer you get to the person, you find out you don't want to be like that. You want to be like somebody else. And I had a lot of models when I was growing up in junior high school that, I want to be like this guy, and I want to be like this guy. But when I met Reb Michel, then it became a model for me, and to the extent that really what I do today is really modeled after him, everything I do today. He never told me what to do, or at least I don't remember what he told me. But one piece of advice he told me before I went to yeshiva, he said, pick your friends. Don't be picked, you pick your friends. And I really want to thank him for picking me as a Talmud and as a friend, and being so close to my family. Okay. Now that was for Reb Michel. Now, for Fegi, wants me to sing a Shachiano in honor of the kids. So I don't have musical accompaniment, but I will need all of your help if you will please help me along. Baruch Ata Hashem. I was once in the Twerski choir. Elokeinu melech haolam שהחיינו והגיענו לזמן הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, 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 שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו 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 לזמן הזה, 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 שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו 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 לזמן הזה, שהחיינו והגיענו לזמן הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו לזמן הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, שהחיינו והגיענו לזמן הזה, 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 לזמן הזה. ושהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו, ושהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו, שהחיינו וקיימנו, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, 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 לזמן, לזמן הזה.
A hard act to follow. And now I'd like to introduce Jim Hiller.
I'm not sure if this is a banquet or a roast. I have to change my comments a little bit. Mark Pittman had a wonderful comment. Wanted to know if that was Shlomo Porter or Memorex. It's hard to tell. If anybody's involved or ever watched an Academy Awards ceremony, you know that if you're a performer, recipient, you always like to thank the people involved and say hello to people at home. And I didn't want to miss this opportunity. I wanted to say hello to Todd and all of Table 19. Back in the corner. Uncle Howard asked me to share with you tonight for a few minutes an insight that I have into the rabbi's character, something that touched me and something that might touch you as well. And I wanted to do that in the time allotted to me by telling you one or two short stories of events in which the rabbi's been involved in my life and the life of my family and my wife, and then try to tie it together with you with the insight. The first story starts when I was in my young teens, I was confirmed at Temple Emmanuel, which was a wonderful experience for me. But it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I read my first Haftorah here at Beth Yehuda. Some of you are here tonight, were with me then, and you'll remember, although we try to forget, that it was probably 50 degrees below zero, and it was not the best time to be out on Shabbos celebrating my Haftorah with me. It was very warm and friendly outside, but as I say, very cold inside, but very cold outside. One thing I'm sure of is that the cold air must have affected my lungs because my chanting and singing the Haftorah left much to be desired. I think it was Alan Borsick that wrote an article about it that was not terribly melodic. In fact, I remember at the time that the rabbi commented very perceptively. He said that a Caruso you ain't. I wasn't too worried about the truth of his statement because, as most of you know, I can't sing. But when rabbis start saying ain't, you get a little worried. Anyway, things went well. I finished the Haftorah. We all had a wonderful time. And that's the first story. The second story starts with my wife and I. Kinohara, we have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, ranging from age 10 to 1.5. When our third son was born, we began searching for names for him. And we, of course, turned to the rabbi, who we knew at that time. And the rabbi told us of the custom of naming your child after the yortzeit of a beloved member of your family who had passed away. Or if you didn't have such a person that you wanted to name the child after, to name the child after a great Jewish figure. So, consistent with that custom, we spent some time with the rabbi, and he suggested the name of Levi Yitzchak to us, after the great Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. Having 2 sons at that point, Joshua David and Aaron Michael, who now are Sruli, as you may know him, and Avram Herschel, we were not terribly keen on biblical names. And we were concerned, would it be Levi, would it be Levi, how would people pronounce the name, how would we pronounce the name? And as a lawyer, I was thinking at that point that it might be nice if one of my sons followed in my footsteps and became a lawyer and actually have to go to law school to become a lawyer. And we were thinking, how is a Levi Yitzchak going to get into a good law school like Harvard Law School? Fortunately, we know now that those 2 problems were not problems. People pronounce Levi very nicely, and we have with us tonight Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz, who was our guest over this past Shabbos as a part of this banquet extravaganza, who, as you may know, is a graduate of Harvard Law School. So I'm not at all concerned now that a Yitzchak, a Levi Yitzchak, can get into Harvard, and maybe you can put in as an alumni, a few good words for him. So anyway, that's the end of the second story. We weren't too concerned about Levi. This past Shabbos, we read 2 parshas. We read Vayakhel and Pekudei. And Shabbos morning, I was learning with some other fellows, with Rabbi Binyamin Siegel, who was one of the 6 Kollel fellows learning in the Milwaukee Kollel. One of the 6 Kollel fellows learning in the Milwaukee Kollel. Rabbi Siegel was trying to tie together for us 3 Pesukim found relatively close together in Pekudei, where the Almighty commands Moshe to erect the Mishkan, the tabernacle, to lift the walls in an upright position. And then it goes on to say that the tabernacle was erected in the passive tense. And the third pasuk, the third sentence, says that Moshe erected the tabernacle. So Rabbi Siegel, as he's often known to do, turned to us and he says, what's going on here? It's one of his famous questions. Did Moshe erect the tabernacle or didn't he? And the answer he gave was, yes, he did. And then he paused and he said, no, he didn't. He went on to explain that Moshe went to the Almighty and said, look, this tabernacle is huge. It's these large wood frames covered with gold, and I may not have the strength to lift these shelving. So what do I do? So the Almighty turned to Moshe and said, look, you just put your hands around the walls, you put them underneath the walls, you do the best that you can, and watch what happens. Well, we know that the rest is history. The Mishkan was erected, the walls came up, and what Rabbi Siegel was trying to teach us from this is that in reality, the Almighty raised and erected the Mishkan. But in truth, it was Moshe. And in the third pasuk we hear that Moshe erected the Mishkan, and he got credit for it. So that if we, as Moshe and the Almighty, act in a partnership, and we do our part, the Almighty will help us do the rest. The lesson, or the insight that I have is so too with the rabbi. Not to confuse the rabbi with God, but we know that Julius, our president, is famous for always saying that the rabbi walks with the Almighty. So there's some connection here. For me, the Haftorah, the first story, was a task that I thought was impossible, something that I never could do. The rabbi, on the other hand, believed in it, believed in the job that I had to do, and believed in me. And working as a partnership, I was able to do something that I thought was impossible. And the rabbi enabled me to reach a higher spiritual level. The same is with the second story, Levi Yitzchak. The rabbi knew that we could not fail by naming our child Levi Yitzchak, and that he would stand in good stead and in good company, Meretz Hashem, with other Torah scholars for the rest of his life, and that we would be on solid ground by giving him that name. The insight that I have to the rabbi that I wanted to share with you is his strength, his ability, his gift to enable each of us, myself especially included, to reach higher levels. That if we take the first step, he's always behind us, not behind us, but with us, sometimes even in front of us, leading the way, showing us what we have to do. And it's that gift and that strength of his that has endeared him to me, to my wife, to my family, I'm sure to all of us here. And for that I thank him very much. Happy birthday. The next speaker will be Reb Don Grandi.
Shlomi, that was beautiful, the way you sang. But if the truth be known, Faggy asked me first. I knew you'd be in town, and I didn't want to really hurt your feelings, though. It's an honor for our family to be associated with this dinner tonight. Our relationship with the Rabbi, Faggy, and their family is very special and very uplifting to us. We see Rabbi Michal as the prototype, or as I think it was Shlomi or Stanley said, as the model rabbi, son, husband, father, and the list continues, uncle, nephew, brother, counselor, teacher, student, host, and friend. I could talk about the great insights the rabbi provides and the encouragement to take on greater tasks. Others have and will describe those attributes. Early in our relationship, we saw the rabbi is a complete human being. Many years ago, we were new to the Twerskis, and we were invited for Shabbos lunch at their house. We watched everything very carefully, everything that was taking place, certain that every little action was part of the Shabbat ritual. An esteemed rabbi was in town and was given the honored seat to the right of the rabbi at the Shabbos table. The rabbi made Kiddush, we washed, we said the Hamotzi, and as the meal began, Rebbetzin Faggy presented the rabbi with a glass vessel of orange juice. Our rabbi stood, and first to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right, finalizing on the right and shaking this glass vessel with great vigor to mix up the orange juice. The rabbi shook the juice, and suddenly the top shot off, and the juice gushed out all over, completely dousing the honored guest rabbi. dripping from his eyebrows, dripping from his beard, and pooled in the many folds of his long black robe. We were very surprised. But we realized that this was the ritual of spilling the juice on the honored guest. Rabbi Michal was quiet, as if he was receiving some inspiration. And then, in great deference, he roared out loud, laughing as hard as he could uncontrollably. The guest, a very gracious person, denied discomfort, as if he had been through this Shabbos ritual before. We learned the Twerski family has fun with a wonderful sense of humor. The rabbi also retained the respect of his guest, who has returned many times, and unknown to him, he is known in the shul as the Tropicana Ruv. We have learned much from the rabbi, from Fagi and the whole family. You are a very important part of our life. Thank you and happy birthday. I would like to introduce Rebbitzin Cookie Spitz, who has been a wonderful... This is what Howard wrote on here. When Howard gives me something, I write to say exactly what it said. I'm just telling you what Howard said. Howard is my idol. It's outside of the temple grounds, of course, so we don't have idols inside the temple grounds. Whoever's going to speak now is going to get up and they're going to tell you who they are.
Benzine was supposed to go next. It's very difficult to choose one incident from your whole lifetime. All the friends had it easier. They didn't know him all their lives. How many times have you heard from your parents, "I'm doing this for your own good"? I heard it many times, and I learned a lesson somewhere between the years of 4 and 7 that made me understand that it's true. And in turn, I tell my children this story. It was Erev Pesach, and my father was preparing what he calls the Rabbi's Revenge. It's the white horseradish that he serves for Korech on the Seder night. And he had grated the horseradish by hand and sealed the jar, and left it on the table, and said, "Cookie, don't open that jar because the smell is very potent." And he walked out of the room. And curiosity killed the cat. And I opened the jar, took a hefty whiff. Next thing I knew, I was hung upside down by my ankles outside the back door. And my father was banging my back so some oxygen would return to my lungs. My nose and my eyes and my throat were smarting for a few days, but I always remembered the lesson, and I always knew that what Tati told me was for my own good, even if it meant that I had to miss excursions that the friends on the block were having on Shabbos, if it meant not eating certain candies that everyone else was eating, or other things that kids might have thought that they were being deprived of, but I knew that Tati meant it for my own good. And I tell my kids this story when I tell them that I mean it for their own good, and they're constantly asking me to repeat the story of Milwaukee Zaidi and the Chraim for Saida Nacht.
Thank you, Cookie. I'd now like to call Rabbi Ben-Zion Twerski.
I couldn't do this all on my own, so I brought my little brother with me. You have to speak to the microphone.
I have a couple of stories about me and my father. My first story is about accepting criticism. I walked home from school with an unsatisfactory in my report card on accepting criticism. I showed my father the report card and he said to me something that I never forgot. If the criticism is true, try and improve on it. If it isn't, just ignore it. That should be a lesson for everybody. If the criticism is true, just try and improve and don't get all crazy over it. And if it's not true, then just ignore it. Thank you, Tati. Okay. I have another story about what my father does with me on his free time. Sometimes he plays a game called Horse with me. It's similar to basketball. It's like a hit or miss game. If you miss it, you get an H. If you hit it, you don't get anything. The person that gets up to HORSE first loses. So I was playing with my father, and he won me HORSE to zip. Then he brought me upstairs and said to my mother, "This horse needs some oats." I played a game right after that of horse. Not right after that. I was winning him HORS to nothing. And it was his shot. He said, "Now it's time to finish you off." He made 5 straight. I missed 5 straight. That also shows how Hashem listens to a tzaddik's words. In all my years, I want to accomplish what you did in your 50.
After these two, I'm setting myself up for failure. First of all, I'm surprised how Cookie could remember anything from when she was 4 or 7. I can't remember anything from before I was 18. When we decided to have this banquet in honor of my father, I figured that I was going to be asked to speak, and I started creating a list of things that I'd like to talk about. Since Howard has only given me an hour and a half to speak, I decided I'd pick out 2 things that were not only special to me, but maybe can be useful to other people as well. They're item 3,465 and number 6,249. One of the things my father instilled in me was how to think positively. One of the few memories I do have from before I was 18 was my father's office in the house on 55th and Chambers. I guess looking at this room as a little kid, it seemed like it had these slanty roofs, like this slanty ceiling, like there is in an attic. And it always seemed like as soon as I was going to walk out the door that these books would come tumbling out of the bookshelves. And I'm not sure what it was that I was learning at that time, but I knew that if I would go up to that office while my father was learning, and it may have been Aleph Beis, it may have been a Pasuk, a Chumash, but on the right side, behind the Svarim, he kept bags of candy. And when I'd come up and he'd be happy with what I had done, I got a candy. I don't remember ever, well, that's not true, but very few times did he ever threaten me for not learning or doing my schoolwork. One of the few times that he did was my multiplication tables. And you could wake me up in the middle of my sleep and ask me what 8 times 7 is, and I'll be able to answer it because he really beat that one into me. But that didn't only stay with the candies. When I grew out of candies, it became games and books and Svarim. I still have my set of Chumashim that he gave me. And around the time of my bar mitzvah, when I wanted to put on a bekisha, my father decided that he didn't want me just putting it on for nothing. He wanted me to deserve it. And told me that if I would finish a Masechta of Gemara, a tractate to the Talmud, that he would buy it for me. At the time I was in New York, and he hired a special tutor to learn with me during lunch. And I finished my first Masechta, which was the tractate of Malchus, and he bought me my bekisha. And it went on from there with any item that I wanted to add to my wardrobe. I learned the Masechta. You're probably wondering if that's the case, that his theory for chinuch, for education, was so great, like why I turned out the way I did. The problem was that by the time I was 16, for him to get me to learn anything, I wanted a BMW. One of the things this created was a certain approach that I found myself using many times. Our sages tell us that when it came to the story of Joseph and his master's wife, Potiphar, that as Joseph was about to sin, he saw his father's image in front of him, and his father was saying to him, "No, Joseph, you shouldn't do that." And because of that, Joseph did not sin. I find myself many, many times thinking, what would Tati do in this position? What would Tati do in this situation? If I'd think of it more often, I'd probably be better off. But I can recall one specific time that I was flying on, I don't know if most people probably do remember, People Express, that was an airline that works sort of like buses. First of all, their pilots didn't have much more training than bus drivers. And the reason they were able to be so cheap is because they cut down on manpower. You used to pay on the plane. They'd come around on the plane and you would pay them there. Another reason is they never flew with an empty flight. If one flight was empty, they canceled it and everybody was pushed on to the next flight. I ended up being on a third flight because the second one was empty too. And people were furious. It was on the way from Chicago to New York, $79 fare. And the stewardess were crazy. They were just hassled, and it was a miserable flight. And in the middle of the flight, they announced that someone in the smoking section has a heart condition and can't bear the smoke. If anyone in the front would mind switching with them. I saw no one was rising to offer, so I got up and offered my seat. It was a free Kiddush Hashem. And I went to sit in the back, and I ended up sitting next to a yeshiva bacher who was sitting in the smoking section. And soon thereafter, the pilot gets on the loudspeaker saying that we're landing. And I turned to this bacher, it was my first time flying, and I said, "When do we pay?" So he said, "No, when you were in the front, they had collected the money for the back. And now that you moved back, and they were so hassled that there was no way in the world that they would ever realize that I hadn't paid. I mean, they were just happy that this flight was over." And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what do I do now? I go over to them, tell them I didn't pay. I was in a very awkward position. Plus, $79 is, for a 16-year-old kid, is a lot of money. And that's one time that I specifically remember thinking, what would my father do in this situation? I waited for everybody to get off the plane, and I went over to the stewardess and I said, listen, I could have walked off this plane and you would have never in the world realized that I didn't pay. But it's just not ethical, and that's not what my father would want me to do. They thanked me because they said it would have came out of their pockets, because they know that they never fly an empty plane. But in many ways, the candies, the games, the svarim, the clothing have grown into a much more mature, call it a prize, call it as an incentive. And that is that I find myself many times doing things because I know that it'll make my father happy. I'll see the smile, his hug, his kiss. And that's really, it's really something that keeps me going many times. I find myself frustrated and burnt out, but I know that if my father will have nachas, I'll do it. Tati, I hope that for many years I'll continue to receive these smiles, hugs, and kisses, and hopefully I'll deserve them too. Thank you. All that's been said about my father tonight is very nice. However, all of us know that without mommy, nothing starts, nothing begins. And it's all really mommy's credit that anything can happen, will happen, has happened. And I'd like to ask my mother to come up and speak.
First of all, I'd like to greet all of you and tell you all that while we're all here to honor our rabbi, that there is no rabbi without a following. A rabbi assumes a leader. If there's to be a leader, then there has to be somebody, a group of people who are led. And our sages tell us something very important. They tell us that a leader is commensurate in quality and caliber with the people that he leads. If you have a group of people who are of high caliber, they will end up choosing a leader who is of high caliber. If you have, it has to work both ways. You cannot have a leader of high caliber who has a constituency that is not of high caliber. So if we're here tonight to honor a rabbi, of course the witness of a wife is puzzle according to halacha, but nevertheless, from what you've heard today, I think that we all can at least say that he is quite a guy. So that really redounds much to your credit. We find that in the subjects that we learned, that just recently with Moshe Rabbeinu, with Moses, who was the classic leader of the Jewish people. He was our teacher, the first leader of the Jewish people after the giving of the Torah and during the giving of the liberation. And we find that when he gave the Jewish people the Torah, and shortly thereafter they sinned and they created the golden calf. And at the time they created the golden calf, Moses was still up in heaven studying the Torah. And the Almighty said to him, Moses, raid, go down. And our commentaries tell us that he said, raid migdolascha. Moses, the people that you have led until now have just sinned, and they've come down in station. And therefore you have to come down in station. You've got to go down a notch. If the people that you're leading are now not as superior and are not of the quality they used to be, then that diminishes you as well. So tonight, if we've gotten together to honor a man of caliber, then we are also honoring a community of caliber, friends of caliber. So first of all, I want to thank you for being these friends of caliber who have encouraged and given my husband the incentive to be the person that he is. And I hope that you will continue to do this in the future. As most of you know, I unfortunately am in my year of Avelus, my year of mourning. I lost my father of blessed memory just 4 months ago. And many of you will understand what I'm telling you because you've had, unfortunately, similar experiences, and the others who don't, I hope should not know from it. When one loses a loved one, somebody so integral to oneself as a parent who's there when you wake up in the morning, who's there when you go to sleep at night, whose earliest memories that you have of encouraging you to be what you become. And wherever you turn, there are all those memories. And then you see, and as a matter of fact, Chanamalka just called, my daughter Chanamalka called from New York last night, and she said, Mommy, she says, you know what, I looked at the calendar, just for some unexplainable reason, I happened to look at the calendar and I realized that my birthday was last week. So she said, I turned 21 last week. So she says, yeah, you know, she says it came and went. And she doesn't notice dates. She gets that from us. I don't know what date it is unless I have to write out a check. The day came and went, and she said, you know what? And Zayda didn't call me to tell me it was my birthday. Everybody always relied on Zayda, even though he has over 90 some grandchildren, great grandchildren. Any occasion that there was, if it was an anniversary, a birthday, we didn't know it was taking place unless Zayda knew and Zayda called. She said Zayda didn't call to tell her, so she missed the time of her birthday. So you see a person who's so much a part of one's life, and then you see that even a person who is so important, that to see him again or to visit his physical remains, you have to go to a cold cemetery plot. So it brings a lot of things into very sharp focus, a lot of ultimate questions that in theory we all know the answers to. All of a sudden, you have to, all those things that we knew have to filter down to the heart and even more so to behavior. And I was thinking of what my father, of blessed memory, would say if he would be here tonight. And I think that one of the things that he would tell us, he would say to us all, is Rabbi say, kinderlich. He would say, you have to make sure that we understand what life is all about. We know what the sum and substance of a human being is. Sum and substance of a human being is that basically we're made up of two dimensions. There is one dimension which is our clay configuration. As we learned in Bereshis, God took clay and formed earth, dust, and formed and shaped Adam. This is our clay configuration. This is what's the physical remains that are laid to rest. But then he blew into Adam nishmas chayim. He blew into Adam the soul. He blew, when a person blows, they blow of themselves. When God blew into Adam this nishmas chayim, he blew of himself. That's where the human being gets his godly dimension, his tzelem elokim. So we have these two dimensions. We have the part of us that is offer, that is dust, and we have the part of us that is elokuz, that is godliness. And the important thing about that is to understand, to make the reality filter down to behavior, is that we have to understand that with everything that we do, every act, every thought, from the minute we wake up in the morning till the time we go to sleep at night, that every decision that we make, every choice that we make, is a choice made in one direction or the other. Either we are choosing offer, either we are choosing the dust. Either we are choosing in favor of our clay configuration, or we are choosing godliness, or we are choosing that which bridges heaven and earth. That which bridges heaven and earth, voting for the divine investiture, means that those are the things that will never die. Those are the things that are never laid to rest. I think that what my father of blessed memory would tell you here today in honoring one, I don't even know if my husband ever knew how much, Ima Flangia, how much my father of blessed memory thought of him. He used to tell me, and I've heard this from many members of my family, my father was not one that was given to a lot of open compliments. He wasn't one who just stood around and patted you on the back every second. But many a time, and it's come back to me in all different directions, that my father said that he spanned 2 generations. He knew the greats of Europe. He himself was a Talmud of Lublin. He had great Rabbi in Lublin. He was a Talmud of Reb Lezer Vizhnitzer. He had, and in this generation, he knew all the greats of this generation. And what he would always say about our Rabbi is that he had yet to meet another person who was as ehrlich, who was as sincere, who was as genuine, who had that kind of consciousness about what was real in life and what was really important. Consciousness of that divine investiture, who every inch along the way when there were choices to be made, understood what those choices needed to be and never got sidetracked by all the blandishments or whatever life offers us. He had a tremendous abiding, genuine respect. And I heard it from many Rebbes who he was privileged to know, who in passing told it to my brothers and came to me, the kind of statements that he made about him. So I'm sure that this in fact would be what he would want to tell us. As a matter of fact, it was interesting that the beautiful pictures that you see in this book here tonight, that of course nobody got to see till tonight because it was Howard's secret, but Howard had a photographer follow our rabbi around for a few days, and this photographer went to funerals, he went to visited the hospital, he went here, he went there, he came into our house, and the craziness that goes on there, and this guy was like, he was in a state of shock. And then he made a very interesting comment. He made a comment that I think Lisa mentioned it to me. She said, I was actually bemoaning the fact that he had to endure this craziness. I mean, my husband endures it, so it's one thing, he's got to, but what did he have to suffer for? So he said to Lisa, he says, it's very interesting, he says, he brings such peace to the chaos of his life. And really, I think this is a peace that's born of knowing what's important in life, of understanding what choice and what direction choices have to be made, and what's really important, what lasts, what isn't laid to rest after 120 years, that which is eternal. And understanding a constant consciousness, a constant awareness of that, brings that peace that, thank God, we are all privileged to have, and hopefully we will continue to have for many years. So I told you what my father of blessed memory would say. Now I imagine you want to know what I would say. I have to preface it by an understanding that I think it was my nephew Itchy had mentioned to me. He told me that the Chiddushei Harim had teachers, that the first Ger Rebbe taught, that the one who knows a person best, there are only two beings who really know an individual, and that is God and his wife. So I am really the pivotal person here. What I would tell you is something that I've thought about many times. you know, as we go through life, all of us would want to have a glimpse and a better understanding of the God we serve. Everything in our life revolves around doing what God wants, and our whole life is basically subordinate to the wishes of this God. And sometimes we go through troubled times, and we have questions, and we have feelings where we say to ourselves, you know, why does this need to happen? Why does that need to happen? I'd like a glimpse into how and why. Let me have a glimpse of the Almighty. And I could tell you that I've had a lot of help in this direction, because one thing that I say to myself always is how magnificent a God it is that we have, that just one of his creatures is a man like like my husband and your rabbi. This is just one of his creations, and how wonderful he must be if you multiply that manifold times. So I hope and wish that all of us will be privileged to celebrate many occasions in the future with good health and lots of nachas from one another. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have two more short things of the evening. The first is the benching. We'd like you to join with the rabbi's nephew, Rabbi Twerski, who will lead the benching. Then we have a short sight and sound show where we can show you some of the photography of Mark Avery, and then a few closing words from the rabbi.
Rabbi Sai, Mebel Ben. Shem Adonai mevayrach miyad v'yad ha'olam. Shem Adonai mevayrach miyad v'yad ha'olam. B'shis, Ma'amrei Rav, b'shis, Abi Meir, b'shis, Menonim Rabbona, Rabbi Sai, nevarech alayeni shechalni mishalai. Alayeni shechalni mishalai, v'tuvchai. Vorech alayeni shechalni mishalai, v'tivachini.
your soul, never revealing even to you, but then acting, guiding you to something more. Reb Michal is a rabbi, Rebbe, who looks deeply, gently into the recesses of your soul, but only when your soul invites him in. The rabbi is here and now, and when we urge him to reach down to his mystical self, he grins and laughs. The rabbi is engaged in today, but his today brings yesterday to every issue. We ask him every week for all the numbers that would change our lives so easily, and always he pretends no knowledge, skillfully guarding what is his for higher plans than these. The Rebbe and the Rebbitzin brought Jewish royalty into our lives and invited us to experience our Jewishness in the safety of their care. On Simchas Torah, after all the song and dance, we entered their special world, and we tasted Jewish joy with our every sense. After all these intervening years, nothing that we have experienced can compare in sheer intensity to those privileged hours when the Rebbe sang and danced and taught us Torah. Michal, rabbi, leader, Rebbe, guide, counselor, teacher, sage, Talmudist, friends, comforter, model, Rav, son, grandfather, husband, father to a community, each, every, always. Michal has achieved most changes in the people he has touched by their own sense of his expectation. It is a powerful unexpression of his personality, which we know and understand because it happens within each of us in the privacy of self. It allows the rabbi, Reb Michal, to devote more of himself to being everything he can, tirelessly learning, endlessly reading, always interested, and then to attribute all of our gain to us and none to himself. Reb Michal, because he aspires to all that he can be, gives us the courage, gives us the will to seek each for ourselves with his gentle non-prodding, with his belief that we can be everything. We only have to will it. Most of us have managed to compartmentalize our essence, and then only with some heroic effort. And in the abrasive world, we call up this category to present itself against that situation. Most of us work intensely to improve the quality of each aspect of ourselves and finely tune the nuances of our behavior. Reb Michal has but one essence, impregnated with Torah. Reb Michal has but one essence that hears and sees, that tastes and smells, that laughs and cries, that works and aspires, that lives and breathes always as one. Our lives cause us constantly to search within ourselves for a better response, while he is the natural result of all that he has become. The rabbi, Reb Michal's ability to bond is almost an art form. He instinctively reaches out and in that action somehow becomes one with you. When the rabbi, Reb Michal, bonds, there is this sense of forever, the future will to share simcha, sorrow, into a loving vessel. When the rabbi, Reb Michal, bonds, it's an act of intimacy. Frightening in the beginning, startling is its quickness because the world in which we live is hostile to revealing aspirations, failures, hurts, and pains. When the rabbi, Reb Michal, bonds, time and distance, while obstacles can stand aside in his presence, but only if we will it. He is almost near perfect, the rabbi, Reb Michal. And even in those areas in which he is still becoming, you fail if you compare him to yourself. It is true that he has not yet conquered time. It is perhaps his only self-delusion. He still hangs on to believing that he can expand time to meet demands because he needs to. In the whole of his day, there are perhaps unused seconds, but the hours and minutes each have an agenda of their own. And even eating and even sleeping fight for their own space of time. Lateness pains him, the pain of people waiting, the frustration of his children, the upset of his wife who only rightfully want what he is willing to give. I used to ask him to change to everyone else's time. But lately, as an act of love, I too have joined the search to somehow give him more because he needs it so. Mark Avery took all the pictures and came back often to talk about what he had seen. He had begun with the fact that the rabbi doesn't photograph well, and he does not like being photographed. And as a result, we had but one good photo. Mark said that if there was one, there could be many. If he could become invisible to the rabbi, there, but not. And he succeeded. Mark said that the rabbi brought a sense of peace to his mother, to his family, to industrial plants, to hospital patients, to funerals, to study sessions, to meetings, everywhere, all within a frantic pace, and he captured many facets of the man. In a never-ending day, Reb Michal is called upon in many different roles and many different ways, and through all of it, he never loses consciousness of what it is all about, and never what he is all about. Mark Avery saw no more than we have seen, but in recording it, he gave us all another chance to see another's artist's craft. And best of all, there is much more that keeps evolving. You can be my Rebbe, Reb Michal, if you will love me. If you will love my wife, my sons and daughter, all, each, completely. If you will nurture us, each and all, and help us understand our potential, love us through those times in our lives when only love can heal. You can be my Rebbe, Reb Michal. If you walk by my side during those struggles in our lives, being there in fact, in mind to assure us that our paths are true. You can be my Rebbe, Reb Michal. If you lead me gently through the stages of our lives, if you rejoice in our births, oversee our growth, seek mates for our children, and when our parents age, comfort us in their infirmity, and stand at our sides at the time of their untimely deaths. You can be my Rebbe, Reb Michal, if you stay always who you are, consistent, unyielding to fashion, understanding our weaknesses, but always strong. Then, Reb Michal, you can be my Rebbe. Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Michal Twerski.